Welcome everybody to Poolside Perspective. I am Trey and this is Mike. So this is the first episode of season 2 of Poolside Perspective. So Mike, any thoughts on the overall subject of season 2?
Well,
What's in store for us?
I don't know what's in store for us so far, but it's been a really interesting journey for the first 52.
Oh yeah.
So we wouldn't be here without Kevin.
Yes.
And Kevin's not with us today, but we want to make mention of Kevin because if you're new to the podcast, you just know me and Trey.
Yeah.
And Kevin is the reason there is a podcast.
Yes.
Because Kevin came to me and said, let's do a podcast. And I was like, no way. It's where like the, TV, we come out with all the new stuff in the fall.
Yeah.
Anyway, we haven't had any reruns though.
No reruns, all new topics that we've covered. So that'll get a little bit harder with season 2. So we're going to be as creative as possible to push out new content that's not, rehashing the same subjects. But it's always good to revisit some stuff when, you have different people in the industry or whatever it might be. Because, the whole concept of this podcast is to have different perspectives on the pool industry and design as a whole and life around water. So.
Yeah, well, and also it's just people are going to be in different places at different points. So thank you, Spider, for helping us through all this.
It's a major help for
yes.
sure.
We've got a really cool guest today. Eric Herman is a Southern California-based writer, editor, journalist, author, publisher, essayist, and poet with over 40 years experience. He is a current publisher and editor of watershapes.com, an online B2B publication focusing on water as an architectural design element and artistic medium. He is also the Vice President of Communications for Watershape University, a position he's held since 2020. Eric has a long history of writing and editing for numerous industries, trades, and other interests. He is a decidedly average ukulele player. And with that, we'll look forward to talking to Eric. Me and Eric go back over 25 years. And so there's not a lot of people in the industry that I can say that I've known very well for 25 years, but I can say that without a doubt, because of my relationship with Eric, my path in the industry is totally different than if we hadn't crossed paths 25 years ago, which was, well, we'll get into that in the episode. So, but he is one of the greatest sources of information in the industry as being an editor for one of the trade journals, and has been looking at all different types of things and ways that water has been used. And similar to what we do here on the podcast, he does with his Water Shapes magazine that comes out twice a month. So great publication that's basically looking at all different things and having anything to do with water, which we do as well.
We do. And I want to ask this question before the intro is over to this video. Since it is season 2, why would a customer want to watch this podcast? Why is this helpful?
Oh, we're trying to give people insight to how to go about creating your backyard oasis.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that reached out to me over the years that were like, hey, come do my project. And, I'm in Santa Fe, or I'm in, Toms River, New Jersey, or I'm in, Dixon, California. And I'm like, I don't go those places.
No.
And they're like, well, we can't find somebody that's like you here. And so how do we go about getting the best product? And so what we decided to do was create this podcast and provide information that you could then use as a resource to understand the questions and the thoughts and the processes you should go through. And if the person's not guiding you in that direction, then you can help guide that designer in the direction that you want to go instead of just accepting what they give you. Which if you call and get 3 average designers, you're going to get an average project.
Yes.
So we're trying to provide expertise and knowledge for you that you can, have a great, awesome experience. And I actually ran into somebody this last week that expressed to their designer, a lot of things that we talked about on this podcast, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
I think also a very beneficial thing is now that this is the 53rd episode, there's a backlog of information. So if someone stumbles upon this and you have questions about the process you're going through, trying to, design the right pool to your standards, you can find a topic. Maybe a lot of the episodes probably don't pertain to your topic, but there's probably a couple that do. And so just watch those episodes and you'll understand. It'll be a little bit more clear, hopefully.
So the first several episodes, I think it was the first 6 or maybe 8, were all the things that you just need to go through in a basic process and think about, and questions to ask and things like that. And since then, we've gone into all kinds of different directions and looking at all kinds of different things that have to do with water, similar to what Eric does with Water Shapes magazine. So that's the fun of it. A lot of people are like, why in the world did you need a mermaid on the podcast? Well, she has to do with water.
Yep.
And she has a great ocean conservation program.
And a perspective on everything.
And the area that she did a lot of her work just got hit by a pretty bad hurricane. So there's going to be a lot of beach restoration that's going to need to be done in that area.
Oh, yeah. A lot of houses are getting dug out right now. A bunch of sand is in the houses.
Yeah. So, well, with that, I think we'll jump on and talk to Eric and see what episode 53 has to offer.
Awesome. Let's get into it.
Oh. Good afternoon, Eric. Welcome to Poolside Perspective podcast. We're glad you're here.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people that thought when I started this episode of doing a podcast that one of my first guests would be you. People are like, well, is that how you're going to start with Eric? And I said, well, when I started my column a long time ago with book notes, I didn't start with the book that you thought I would start with. And, when we first, so I'm going to set this up. Well, I should probably tell the story a little bit better. Let me give you a little bit of background. So in 1999, I was accepted finally into the second Genesis program at Morro Bay. And so I went to Morro Bay, I think it was in March or April, something along those lines. And this was the second class of this highly advanced training program for swimming pool builders. And so I was all excited to go. And everyone's spouse was invited to come if they wanted to bring their spouse with them. But I was a poor guy. I was driving in my beat up pickup truck from Northern California near Sacramento down to Morro Bay. And my wife had to stay home with the 3 kids. And so I showed up there. And what I found out is at dinner every night, they were pairing up all the couples together and stuff like that. And almost everybody had a spouse, except there was 4 people that didn't have spouses, and they put those 4 people at one table. And those 4 people were me and you and Rebecca. And it was a guy that worked for Pentair and R&D. And so I can't remember what his name is. I see him occasionally now and then, but the 4 of us sat at a table, I think more than one evening. And because the 4 of us didn't have spouses. And at the time I was like, well, I wanted to meet all these other people, these cool pool builders and everything. And I didn't even get to sit at a table with a pool builder. Little did I know, I got to sit at the table with 2 of the longest writing people in the trade journal and in the industry. So anyway, so we sat together at a table, and not long after that, I sent you some pictures and said, hey, I think these would make a great article. And we worked on that together, which was ironic because last week we focused on a project every time about the design concepts, and we focused on the CETA Parade Home project, which ended up in Better Homes and Gardens, but it also ended up in my first article in Water Shapes magazine with you, along with 2 other projects. But the cool thing is, shortly after I pitched you an idea to write a column on books. And you're like, well, what do books have to do with, the pool industry? And I said, well, I was really inspired by David Tischerman. David Tischerman came to the Genesis program, and he said, here's my list of books that you should have if you're going to be a good pool designer. And it wasn't just books on pools, because at that point in time, there was just a handful of books on pools. After you read Sunset, Pool and Spa book, that was one. And then Pools by
Kelly Klein.
Kelly Klein. And those were the two pool books. I mean, after that, I said, I think it would be a really good idea to write a column on all kinds of different books that would have an application to the pool industry. And you were like, well, after you do Kelly Klein, what are you going to do? Can you really do 10 of these? And I said, I think I can do 10. So you had me give you a list. And we started off with, I think, Japanese gardening, or maybe it was
We started off with the book about John Lautner.
John Lautner. Okay. So that was the first one. The Japanese garden was the second one. So anyway, and we proceeded to go through 10 years of
10 years
of books.
Yeah. When you start a column and you talk about something that's going to be a magazine, now these days it's a blog or a website, basically the same thing. What happens is people have 3, 4, 5, half a dozen good ideas, and then they run out. And I've been part of that quite a few times. And so one of the things you look at when you commit to the readers to do something on a regular basis is how sustainable it is. And this idea of taking topics that were adjacent to the industry,
right,
and expanding the definition of what is applicable. You were great at that. And that's what made it work all those years. And it really did work, because it was one of the most popular, well-read parts of the magazine. At the very end, we would always put it at the end, the last page, and it was like leaving the readers with food for thought. And a lot of people really enjoyed. I had people tell me they would go to the end first to see what it was, because it was always surprising, and I figured out a way to tie it in. So that was a really great journey. I really enjoyed that part of it. It was always fun I was always amazed that you had something, because who takes time to read?
Well, the challenge was I just couldn't read one book a month, because that wouldn't cut it. Because a lot of times I read one and it was like, well, this one's horrible. This doesn't have any application at all. Or it kind of dives into something we've already covered or something along those lines. But yes, the journey went all over the place. And that's kind of what this podcast is becoming too. We're looking at all different things that have to do with, and what's funny is when we were doing that 25 years ago, we were on the very beginning edges of the outdoor living experience.
That's right.
It was still a lot about swimming pools. And today, because of the outdoor living experience, which is massive, it's not just about pools anymore. It has to do with everything that's outside the four walls of a house, which basically, after COVID, in my opinion, is now everything, because people want to sleep outside, shower outside, eat outside, everything you can think of inside. Now they want to do it outside. So it's great for fun.
Well, yeah. I mean, just look at the rise of outdoor kitchens as one example.
Oh, yeah.
You could probably do a whole podcast, several podcasts on outdoor kitchens and outdoor dining and what a big deal that's become.
Oh, 100%.
That's just one example. The way pools are used now has changed. You have the concept of the spool, the small pool, or what some people are using the term social pool. You see that in like every single swimming pool now has a Baja shelf, or whatever you choose to call those things. Tanning shelf, Shamu shelf, mermaid shelf, tanning ledge. But those shallow areas, expanded steps basically, are on every pool. And it's because it's more of a social outdoor living concept rather than what we traditionally think of as what you do in a swim.
Right. So when I first started, the questions I would always ask people is how you're going to use your pool for swimming. And that hardly ever comes up anymore. People are like, I don't swim in it. We want it for all these other things. We want, which ties into, we were going to talk a little bit about Vance Gillette. One of the things that Vance did that I thought was really amazing, his whole career was he pushed that we were more about outdoor entertainment, not about just pumps and filters. And
Yeah, that was, and for anybody that's not aware, Vance Gillette was a leader in the pool industry for 40 years. He was vice president of Jandy Corporation. And beyond being a corporate leader, he was a cultural leader in the industry, very outspoken, very charismatic, fun guy, bright-eyed, funny, gregarious, warm, considerate, really a loving dude. And he loved the industry, and he really believed that what we were selling, the industry has always been about. He would say, we're not in the swimming pool business, we're in the outdoor entertainment business. Now with all the years of focus on experience, that seems sort of obvious. But back then, when he started saying it, that was a new way to look at it. He liked to cite the story. He started off in the industry working with
Arneson.
Howard Arneson,
Yeah.
great inventor of pool cleaners. Not the inventor of the pool cleaner, one of the inventors. There was, I would get in trouble because Andrew Pancini Sr. was the guy that first thought of pool cleaners, but he worked with Arneson to really bring them to market. Anyway, years later in the 70s, Vance Gillette was working for Howard Arneson, and he said, he was in his early 20s at this point. He was really a young guy. And he said that Arneson told him that you're not selling a pool cleaner, you're selling a clean pool. That minor twist of a phrase represents a huge shift in thinking.
Mm-hmm.
We're selling an experience. That's what the industry has always been about. People want to be by water. And Vance understood that. And, he always felt that the industry did not do a good job of marketing what we were really about. It's who's got the most efficient pump and what filter works the best and what's the most convenient way to keep a pool clean. And those things are all important. But you don't buy a Mercedes because of the spark plugs.
Right.
You buy it for the ride, for the style, for the prestige, for the comfort. You buy it for the experience of driving it. And that's the same thing with pools. And that was Vance's, if you could say, what thesis did this guy have throughout his career? And we lost him this past August 10th. Had a long battle with throat cancer and had been retired for 10 years. But still had a presence in the industry, stayed in touch with people. Vance was a guy that would call people up randomly just to say hi and find out what's going on. He never stopped doing that. And I was lucky enough to be among his good friends because we had worked together on a bunch of stuff over the years for Pool Spa News, for Aqua, and for Water Shapes. And we lost somebody that really showed us the way for a long time.
I read in an article that he had worked on, and he said people don't want to get wet. People want beauty, people want prestige, and people want entertainment. And I would say that sums up what that people are looking for today. And he was very much the pioneer in preaching that. One other thing I found in an Aqua magazine article they referenced it from 2013. He had a philosophy called done.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with him on the Done article.
The done article. Okay.
Yeah. That was, we did a series of blogs, columns for Aqua. And that was, I think the Done was actually the first that we did of that. And yeah. What do I should have looked that up. What do they stand for? It's like,
So delight your customers, take ownership, do it now, and exceed expectations.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah, that was right after you went to work for Aqua, right? 2013.
Yeah. Right. Water Shapes, the print magazine, went out of business in that recession. And then Aqua asked me to come over and do that kind of stuff for them. And Vance I had worked with them at Water Shapes and Pool and Spa News pretty extensively in the past. And so it was a natural thing. And Aqua is really big about pushing the experience aspect of it. The Done thing actually came out of another one of Vance's big concepts about management. And he was a big advocate of what he called being a servant leader, what a lot of people call servant leadership, where it's you empower the people that you work with, that work for you, to take ownership and do all the things in Done, exceed expectations, do it right away. And he liked to say that, because that was the way he did things at Jandy, he felt that he was there to empower the people there as opposed to rule over them or, be an authoritative figure. He wasn't. And he liked to say that he didn't have to work that hard because everybody knew what they were supposed to do, and he wanted to make sure people knew they were appreciated and gave them the tools that they needed to succeed in their role, which involved everybody having a clear understanding of what they needed to do. When you talk to people that worked for him, like our good buddy, Steve Gutai, who worked with him for years, another great guy in the industry. I mean, he can't say enough about what it was like to work in that environment. You're really part of a team. And, from the guy that sweeps the floors up to the CEO, everybody's got a role and everybody should try to get it done.
Steve Gutai, that was interesting. In 1999, in that Genesis meeting, he was a plumber in Arizona that they had come and talk to us about hydraulics. So he was still in the ditches at that point in time, so he's come a long ways too.
He's come a long, yeah, he's climbed the ladder, and did another series of articles with him on hydraulics that remain among the most sought after old articles we did, because there's a lot of practical stuff in there that's helped.
Okay, so we got a display of all kinds of different, pretties here. So what's the difference between all these things?
So back in the late 70s, early 80s, it was 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch colored glass that was fractured. Then we've gone into crystal. You can use this. You'll see these as far as river rock, fire pits. These are more of a tumbled is what it is. Then you've got bead versus different types of spheres and different colors that are mixed and pre-mixed. And then one thing that I've seen on a lot of your jobs on your Instagram is the tumbled lava rock that comes in different sizes. But all in all, what's the difference between a bucket of glass in a mass merch store than custom? It has to be how it's manufactured and the dyes. If you buy hey, I found 50 pounds of glass for $10, it's probably going to fade within that year. And these glass manufacturers, you get what you get. So usually it's about $75, $80 for 10 pounds. And these are going to be your higher end qualities that will keep your colors and they won't fade. Maintenance. 1 part vinegar, 3 parts water to clean it in a bucket and then reappropriate it back into the fire pit or the burner itself. So
awesome. So one thing that we found over a period of time is we can use all these medias with natural gas.
that's correct.
What we found is it's not a good idea to use all these medias with propane.
That's right. So how do you get around it? Let's say you've got a big bulk tank and you've got to use propane, and how in product as far as what you're talking about, propane tends to blacken the glass is what it does. All you have to do, and you can use glass with bulk propane or propane tank, you got to make sure there's an air space under the burner and with an air mix, which will give a clean burn, because propane goes from liquid to gas. If we have the air mixer underneath the plate of the burner, there needs to be a void for airspace and ventilation. Then you will not get the blackening or the soot that you will. So
one thing also with the propane is it's heavier.
it is.
And so it wants to sit.
Yes.
And so we've cautioned people with using glass, especially with putting heavy levels of glass,
That's
because
correct.
it'll almost make a blanket.
That's correct.
And then your propane sits down there and they don't think they're lighting it.
right.
And then all of a sudden it goes boom.
That's correct.
I, with propane, use a lot of lava rock.
Correct.
Just because I don't want homeowners to
right.
risk safety
Right.
situations. However, if properly done, you could use glass as well.
You can. I think another thing that we've looked at is technology has gotten a lot better with fire pits. I'm going to use some verbiage that's not familiar in the industry, but VIK systems, weather beater systems, or low voltage 110 systems that you can flip a switch or can go in your home automated system, and they run a low voltage current to the fire pit where it can automate it on and off with. It's gotten a lot better. But you're right. You have to safety first when it comes to what you recommend to the customer, how you ventilate it, and what the customer's expectations are as far as what it looks like. So,
Yeah. Awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
One of the things that we also talked about was the blue mine. And that's another loss that occurred this year.
Yeah. June 10th, we lost, if anybody out there doesn't know who we're talking about, it's a guy by the name of Dr. Wallace J. Nichols. He went by J. In 2014, he published a book called Blue Mind, How Water Makes You Happier, More Connected, and Better at What You Do. That's a long title, but it's just known in short by Blue Mind. It was a bestseller. He became famous for it, almost a celebrity author, you might say. And it was something that really very impactful and really ties in to this, again, to this idea of the experience. A little bit of background. He went by Jay. Before he wrote Blue Mind, for years and years, he was a really prominent leading marine biologist focusing on sea turtles. He had been all over the world studying different types of sea turtles in different places and wrote dozens, if not more, papers, very influential stuff in science journals and magazines about the plight of sea turtles and how they respond to different environmental conditions. He was Mr. Sea Turtle. Through that experience, it was a life of water. And he had this idea that you could examine that love of water that people have. We all know that humans love water. We're attracted to it. We're gestated in water in the womb. We're baptized in water. We need water to survive. All this stuff. I mean, you look at brochures for resorts and they always show the water. They don't show the restaurant or the health spa or the gym or the outdoor dining area. They show the swimming pool every time that they have a pretty pool. So what is it about this human connection to water? And what Jay wanted to do was apply the scientific method to examining the effect that water has on people psychologically and behaviorally. The book Blue Mind, you've read it, right?
Yes, sir.
I mean, it goes into some pretty
Deep stuff.
It's deep. It's very well researched. And he created what he called blue mind science. And, the term blue mind I wrote down here, it's the state of mind. It's a mildly contemplative state that you get in when you're in the presence of water, whether you're on the water, whether you're in the water, whether you're under the water. And, they've studied the way the brain reacts in the presence of water, and it does, fundamentally alter the way that you think and you feel in a positive way. And so that's what he termed blue mind. And he was a great coiner of phrases. I got to know Jay reasonably well because he worked with us at Watershape University, and we were affiliated with what we called the Blue Mind Institute. And so we did a lot of events with him, and I had occasion to be in a lot of meetings with him. And we always wound up talking when we were together, and he was a great conversationalist. And he coined phrases, was what his things, and blue mind being the most prominent, but he also had, and he describes in the book, red mind, when you're in that opposite state, that agitated, angry, anxious state that we all get in when work's bumming us out, we're stuck in traffic or whatever, doing your taxes. And so that's red mind. And then there was gray mind, which is kind of that in between, that sort of ennui kind of thing. So he came up with that, which were really good hooks in terms of defining, the way people feel relative to water or not being around water. And he also, he lived in a place called Davenport, which is north of Santa Cruz, very Big Sur-like place. Well, I'm sure you know that area, being from around there. And he in that area, that's this area from Santa Cruz up to Half Moon Bay. That's this really rural stretch of coastline in California,
Beautiful,
unusually undeveloped. And he called it the slow coast. And it was a perfect term to describe that area. And now that's caught on, and they call it the slow coast. So Jay was a very influential guy. He was a big, tall, super handsome dude. I believe he worked as a male model for a while. He was very charismatic, incredibly well-spoken, a really nice person. And he was also, another thing that was one of his signatures was he handed out blue marbles. I've got one here somewhere.
It's in my desk.
Yeah. And the blue marble was that he was inspired by the Carl Sagan thing about the pale blue dot, which was a famous statement made on television originally by Carl Sagan, where Voyager 2 had taken a picture of Earth from Venus. And it's just this little tiny dot. And, he said, everything that you've ever known, every person who's ever lived, all of history takes place on that little blue dot. And of course, it's a water planet. And so Jay would hand out the little blue dot. And I had the pleasure of being at a trade show booth with him for Watershape University, where he was handing out these marbles. And I got to watch how that went down with people, and how sort of transfixed people became when you'd give them the little blue marble and explain what it was about. And, he had a really, a gift for saying and doing things that could alter your perspective. I know when I read Blue Mind back in 2015 for the first time, it absolutely affected me. It kind of codified what I had been thinking for a long time and gave form to a lot of the thoughts that I had had. And last thing I'll say in this little spiel about it is, it occurred to me that blue mind, the way we feel around water, is 100% the reason that the pool and spa industry exists at all. You know, to spend all this money on a backyard, and boy, you know how much people spend these days, right? And the commitment that they have to it. That's an emotional decision. Nobody needs a swimming pool, really. They have them because they want them, because of the way it makes them feel.
100%.
And, you know, so that manifests in different ways. Some people do actually swim. A lot of people don't. But the idea of being around water, being near it, what it does to the ambiance of a property, the way it makes you feel, is why this podcast exists, for why the career you guys have is what it is. And I think we can say it all tracks back to the consumer experience and specifically to the phenomena of Blue Mind.
Oh, yeah. So one of the things that I thought was really cool is he mentioned the wild blue, which is the rivers and oceans and the waterfalls and ponds and rain. And that's something that speaks to me because, you know, we were in Colorado a month ago and my wife's like, "You're just happy here, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is where I love to be because, you know, I've got the mountains, I've got the rivers, I got the trees, all the things that it's part of that wild setting. But most of us don't get to live where we have that. So
That's right.
He
You have to travel to get that.
yes. So he described the domestic blue, which is at the top of the list of domestic blue was swimming pools. But cold plunges and your shower and your bathtub and all things that you can get watered domestically. But one of the things that I was just going to say that's amazing to me is when I used to do these really big projects, we did a pool. Now we're doing the front water feature and the courtyard water feature. And we're doing the master bedroom, you know, courtyard water feature. And then we're doing the pool, and then we're doing, you know, some ornamental thing with what we're incorporating water in some projects 5 or 6 places on the property. You know, where it used to be, it was just about the pool, but now, you know, people want different spaces to get a different vibe and a different feeling and for different forms of entertainment and for different forms of relaxation. And they want all these different, you know, I need the Zen space over here. So I want this water wall. And then, you know, I need this dramatic thing at the front entry. So I need this. Anyway, it's just amazing. And if you look at architecture as a whole, any high-end home has all those type of features. And in fact, the crazier homes, the really crazy ones, that they have even more water incorporated. You know, they've got, you know, water, you know, on their ceiling, you know, because the pool has an acrylic floor that you can see the light coming through into the living room, but you can swim up there too. I mean, it's just amazing how in the last 10 years, we've incorporated more and more and more water, which one thing I think also has a lot to do with our mental health over the last 5 years has been dramatically strained. And I think the COVID situation created a lot of situations for a lot of people, and people are driven now to find, you know, places to have a better health aspect, mental health aspect.
Well, you can't go wrong with people wanting to be happier, relax. And our world provides a lot of reasons to not be relaxed and happy. And water, yeah, it's beyond just swimming pools. You know, that was the whole water. The reason we came up with the term water shapes is because it's an architectural design element that's present in a lot of ways. There are people that make a real art form out of counters and sinks. Yeah. You know, where you have runnels and the water is sculptural. It manifests in a lot of different ways, like say cold plunges, spas, you know, all manner of fountains, ponds are still going on. Pools are a big part of it, no question. But pools have really changed a lot. You know, it's interesting. You're talking about the wild water, the domestic water. A lot of people, when looking at what Jay was about, I think would have made the assumption that he would have been somehow opposed to swimming pools because he was such a devout environmentalist. Pools are chemically treated and they, utilize resources and power and all this stuff. No, he was an advocate of pools and architectural water because he recognized that not everybody can be by the water, natural water. And pools bring that feeling, can bring that feeling to anyone. I talked to him one time, he was a big advocate of, community pools and water parks and places that people gather publicly to be by the water and in the water, and felt that as a society, we should do more to support community aquatic centers and stuff like that. And, he's that whole message. And I think anybody that really is looking to invest in a backyard water environment, a pool environment, a water shape environment, whatever you want to call it, backyard resort, I think that they would do well to read that book. Well, a lot of it wouldn't directly apply. It makes you understand the big picture about why, as
The emotion.
humans, we go there. And I certainly think anybody in the industry that's reading this, that's listening to this, should read Blue Mind. I think Blue Mind should be mandatory reading for everyone, for all pool builders, designers, landscape architects, general contractors, fountain builders, pond builders, Japanese garden artists, all of it. It applies to all of that. And I think everyone who's involved with creating these spaces would do well for themselves to really read and embrace what Jay had to say. By the way, his book is being reissued this year, I think right before the end of the year, by the original publisher, Little Brown and Company, publisher out of England. And they're doing a 10-year special edition of Blue Mind. It's still available on Amazon. All you have to do is type in Blue Mind and it comes up. But there is a special edition coming out, made all the more poignant because we lost him this year. He was only 56 years old. So yeah, it's fun to talk about Jay and Blue Mind because it leads to so many happy places.
Sorry to interrupt this podcast, but we are talking about really how water benefits mental health with the Blue Mind, and he talks about wild waters and domestic waters. So have you designed anything? I know it's always going to be a domestic water when we do a man-made structure, but anything that maybe ventures closer and closer to that wild aspect.
So I had a project a number of years ago, and actually Eric did an article on this project. So it fits that it's in this particular episode here. And what this client wanted was, he said, I went to Maui every year in the summer with my family as a kid. And he said, what I need to recreate in my backyard is that feeling, because I want to create those same memories with my family, my children and my grandchildren. I said, okay. I said, well, what do you want? And he says, I want a real tropical, real organic setting, but the cherry on top is I want a lazy river. And I said, okay, well, why does a guy that's single in his mid-50s want a lazy river in his backyard? And he said, well, you built a pool for this one family, and my son married their daughter. And I was like, oh, cool. And he said, my grandchildren go to their house every weekend and hang out there because they love the pool. I figured if I put a lazy river in with this setting that I want to create, they'll come hang out at my house instead of his house.
Yeah.
And so I built the pool, and they came, is what he told me. The challenge with this particular backyard, he said, I want to look out of my living room windows and I want to see Maui. And so we created this. This was a standard size backyard. In fact, even towards the smaller size backyard. And so as you looked out the primary line of sight, we actually created an island there. And on the island, we put a waterfall, and that waterfall was 8 feet above the ground. But because the island was up 2 feet, and then there was layers that went up, there was a spa that was in this primary line of sight that was up a couple of feet above the island, and then the waterfall on top. So it looked like a very natural stream basically flowing down into this smaller pool, which was the spa, and that flowed down into the river itself. And so it was very organic. So one of the things with organic is we had to have a lot of plants. But this was, again, a very small space. We had to dedicate zones in the yard that had to be plumbing free, because when we finished, you couldn't hardly stick a fork in the ground without hitting a pipe. And so we had dedicated zones for palm trees and dedicated zones for banana trees to be planted. And we couldn't put any pipes in those areas. So we put this whole thing together. And the cool thing is he wanted to be where you couldn't see everything from anywhere. You couldn't see the whole thing from anywhere on the project. So you could only catch glimpses as you went through this project. So there was a lot of mystery to it. So in the primary line of sight that you looked out, you saw the waterfalls coming in towards you. And then off to the left, there was a body of water, which his other requirement is he wanted to play water basketball.
Okay.
So he's like, I got to have enough room to shoot the hoop.
Oh, yeah.
In the pool. And so he said, me and my sons love to do that. So we need enough space for that. And so basically the view from the master bedroom was looking across this pool into a cave.
Ooh.
And so the cave was underneath the big waterfall. And in the cave, he said, I want a bar.
That's
and
awesome.
I said, a what? And he's like, a bar. I'm like, we're going to serve alcohol beverages in the cave? And he's like, yeah. To get to the bar, you got to swim into the cave. And the entrance to the cave was part of the waterfall. So the waterfall fell across the entrance to the cave. And the only way you really noticed it was at night, because there was a light in there. And when it was lit up at night, you could see very clearly into the cave. But the rest of the time, it was a cave. You know, you couldn't really see. Well, there was 4 bar stools in there and a whole bar area. And so then around at the back of this pool, the water disappeared around the corner. And that was the beginning of the lazy river.
Okay.
And so, but you couldn't see where it went. So you had to swim over there and go around, and this thing snaked through the back of the yard and then reconnected around. And this whole place was set up very, very lush, lots of plants. You could not see the neighbors when we finished. We went back 5 years after we finished it and photographed it again. Now it's been 12 years since we did it. And I understand that you can't still see any of the neighbors. And it's a very, very secluded thing. So it was on HGTV. And part of the whole thing that was crazy about it is everybody's like, I can't believe you fit all this into this standard backyard. So we had some patio areas, but not a lot of patio areas. It's a nice size river. It's about 160 feet long. It's got the grotto cave, swimming bar. It's got waterfalls going all over the place. And then it's a tropical jungle. So it was a lot of fun. It created a lot of cool visuals. And then the other thing is he's like, if I'm going to have all these guests over, I have to have a bathroom. So we turned one of the bays of his garage. He had a 4-car garage. We turned one of the bays into a bathroom with a full shower, a sauna, and, changing area, sink, toilet, all the things like that. So we had everything in this backyard underground, sewer pipes, gas pipes. Oh yeah. Then he added tiki torches at the end, which wiped out 1 palm and I think 2 banana trees, because to get those pipes in the ground, we couldn't get the plants in.
Yeah.
So anyway, a lot of fun. A lot of interest, a lot of elevation that took place in this small backyard to create the different levels and everything like that. But a tremendous project and a fun one. And his grandkids loved it. Actually, I think they've had 2 weddings in the backyard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So he was a single guy. He's now a married guy. Somebody married him. They liked his pool. I'm sure that's not why they married him. But anyway, lots of fun that we can create in backyards and memories. And he certainly has a lot of those at this point in time.
Well, thank you for walking me through that design concept. And let's get back to the episode. I think it's interesting that Vance and Jay both examine, what we've been talking about, water and how it's emotional impacts and mental impacts. They mirror each other in a sort of way. When we talk about the cleaner, and he said, no, it's a clean pool, and the overall aspect that Jay has. So I think it's interesting how they kind of mirror each other in a way.
With you being a younger person coming into the industry, I mean, how do you feel about the importance of this growing up? I mean, being around water and must have been a major influence or in your formative experiences.
Yeah, I love being around water, and it's funny because I've been in the pool industry for 4 years for construction, and now I'm working with my dad, so it's 2 more years under the belt, so 6 years in total. And when I was in construction, a lot of the guys did not like pools at all because it was a pain in their ass. But
sure,
for me, since I've been young, when my dad would go, he worked at Golke, and when he would sometimes work a little late after a soccer game, I would be in the hot tub or something like that. And I mean, to this day, I'll get in the hot tub every day and then go in the pool to cool off. So water's always meant a lot to me. And I like the ocean. I like to look at it, but I mean, with all the shark attacks and stuff going on, I love pools even more because, they don't have sharks in there. So,
you're not sharks in pools unless you want them to be in there.
Yeah, that's true. There are some pools with sharks. So.
That's right. Rick Chafee, he's got a shark tank, right?
And slides.
Well, the ocean, that's actually a big point. One of the things I've been covering in Water Shapes is more about natural waters and water as a resource. And, for example, this year, there's an epidemic outbreak of blue-green algae, toxic blue-green algae in lakes throughout the United States and lots of places around the country. A notable uptick in those outbreaks. And, it's due to phosphorus and nitrogen contamination from fertilizer and pesticides and all the stuff we dump into bodies of water and increased temperatures. And you put it all together and these toxic algae. I live right by a lake here, Lake Elsinore, big, beautiful lake, but you can't go in it and you can't eat the fish, and no one goes boating on it because it's got this horrible toxic algae thing going on. They're trying to deal with it, but swimming pools, point being, ocean and natural bodies of water have a lot of problems, including sea creatures that are becoming more aggressive and will hurt you, if not out and out eat you. So swimming pools, are a safe place to enjoy the water. You're not going to, if it's well treated and, you're relatively safe, actually. So yeah, natural waters have problems. I don't like going in the ocean really that much anymore. And I love that, but there's all these places where there's, they close beaches because of sewage spills. And, there is weird behavior by marine life now. Shark attacks are up in some areas. There's the whole thing in Europe where killer whales have been attacking yachts.
Oh, wow. I haven't heard that. Crazy.
It's like I think they're starting to get a little angry.
They labeled us killers. So anyway, but
well, they are apex predators. You know.
I think one of the most therapeutic things is because we don't have really ocean that's close to us. I guess Galveston, but it's just walking on the beach and the water hitting your ankles. I love that feeling, smelling the sea.
Again, I think everybody that's in that situation has a emotional creates feelings, and most people are happier there. And they're, what Jay said, happier, healthier, more connected, and better at what you do. Just get near, in, on, or under the water.
Yeah, there was a thing that Jay, one of the things he broke down specifically what you can expect from being around water, the positive effects beyond just the general blue mind. But, he lists water associated peace, elevated happiness, an antidote to anger, the red mind. It lowers stress and anxiety, which is one of those things that's been empirically proven. It lowers your heart rate, boosts creativity and problem solving, manage PTSDs, and enhance the quality of concentration. And it's funny that a lot of times when people are in the shower or the bathtub or swimming is where revelations will come to you.
Mm-hmm.
When I swim, I often am working out stuff in my mind, and it just seems to start happening. It's true that water stimulates the thought process in a way that nothing else that I can think of does. It is therapy in a swimsuit.
Oh yeah. I think a lot of that is when you're in the water, you're typically not really focused on anything. So everything that's on your mind just naturally comes to the forefront of it. And so it just helps you just like pierce the veil of like everything that's going on in your world and just focus on whatever that is. And that can create those revelations or ideas that you have in your head. I don't know.
It's true. Yeah. It's like it clears the space for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I've written a lot of headlines and stuff in the water. It's, it's interesting. There's another guy, I'm sure you've heard of him, Mike, Dr. Bruce Becker. Used to be with the University of Washington. He was a professor and a researcher. And he was a big advocate of the health benefits of water and had done groundbreaking work with its effects on people with dementia, for example, and the positive effect it can have. And he cited this thing in an article I was doing with him one time about how when you just are submerged in water up to your neck, because of the buoyancy, your chest cavity increases by the capacity for blood movement, circulation increases by 20 to 30% just by being submerged in water. And so the physiological implications of that are huge. Your heart is working that much less to pump that much more.
Right.
And so it basically, because of the buoyancy, your circulation system becomes hydraulically more efficient. And that means you're moving oxygen more efficiently. Everything in your body is working better when you're submerged in water. And that obviously is going to have an impact on your brain and everything else. It's a whole mind-body connection. And this is not, spiritual mumbo jumbo. This is a measurable physiological marker that they can point to now. It's hard science.
We, years ago, we talked about, warm water, and all the health benefits of it. I remember we did an article on that a long time ago. And it was amazing, all the benefits that came from, just being in like a hot tub.
Mm.
So anyway, Trey's, your nightly soaks are greatly beneficial.
Oh, I know. Cause I looked it up cause I've been doing it a lot lately and I looked up, I was like, what benefits is it? And it was like the heat increases the flow rate of your your blood, like you were saying. So heat on top of that makes it go faster, and then jumping in the pool constricts it and helps you, fight off injuries and prevent injuries and stuff like that. So it's physical data on all this stuff that's measurable now. It's awesome.
I talked to a marriage counselor once that was doing some promotional work for Dimension One spas. And they had developed a spa that was specifically made for couples. And this guy's whole point was that when he does marriage counseling with people that are having problems, obviously, one of his first recommendations was get in a hot tub spa, because he said nobody fights in a spa. You got two people that are this is what he told me, two people that are at each other's throats. You put them in a hot tub, and the odds are, first, they're going to stop fighting. And secondly, there's a very good chance that they'll start working on whatever it is in a way more constructive way. And, I thought about it. I was like, yeah, that's true. Have you ever heard of or seen or been a part of an argument in a spa?
Mm-mm.
No. It's almost like magic as far as that goes.
Well, I think they use I don't know if you've heard of it, but the sensory deprivation tanks. And I mean, it's a tank that people use for therapy. They go in, they close it, completely black, and people just float because of salt levels in it. And it's the same idea we're talking about.
That idea has caught on in a big way. Really, sensory deprivation tanks. I'm actually doing some research on this right now.
Okay.
Because it's catching on. It started in the 70s. There was a movie with William Hurt that was called Altered States, where this guy would go in a sensory deprivation tank. And everybody thought it was like this, kind of 70s thing that came and went. Well, in recent years, they've come back in a big way. And it's exactly what you just said. It's, you block out the world, you float, and you get in a meditative state, and it's in a dark environment, and they monitor your vitals in many cases, and it's been proven that it does all these beneficial things physiologically. I think I would feel a little claustrophobic. I'm not sure that.
Yeah,
100% there.
like a mummy in water.
Yeah. But hey, I mean, it definitely works for a lot of people that believe in it. That really use it as a therapy tool to get in touch. And there's people that do, like, it gets pretty far out there in some cases. There are people that are doing transcendental meditation and claim to have metaphysical experiences as a result of it. I don't know. I just like relaxing in water personally. Not looking to like go fly around the universe.
Yeah, I'll just relax in my pool.
Say, hey, honey, let's go to Mars.
See that blue dot?
Yes, look at the blue dot from our hot tub.
One of the things we talked about is we have a segment every week, which is called Poolside True Crimes. And we talked about a subject matter that we thought we should discuss among each other and come to whatever our personal conclusions are. And the question that was breached is it a crime not to be taught how to swim? So
there's a lot of ways to look at that.
Sure.
One argument against it being a crime is not everybody has access to water. So how could it be a crime if somebody just simply can't do it,
Okay. So
there's that aspect of it. I mean, and then you could say, well, everybody should have access to water because of the benefits of swimming.
Well, and we may not all be raised with the access to that, but as we grow as adults, you still have the access. So we had Ella on, who is a mermaid, professional mermaid. And when she was asked to do that the first time, she's like, well, I can't do that because I don't know how to swim. And she actually got swim lessons, learned to swim as an adult, got certified, scuba certified. She's now an instructor. So she did all this when she's in her 20s. So, and she said it totally changed her life, because now she has a total career. I mean, so every 4th of July, Atlantis hires her to swim in the tanks, outside the main dining room area. So that's part of what she does, as well as lots of other places today. But, she wouldn't have that career at all if she hadn't learned how to swim. But the joy that you receive from having the capabilities to interact with water, is it a crime not to have that?
Well, here, this ties in, and I mentioned this before we came on the air, I guess. Vance was very, very opposed to the way the pool industry handled safety as an issue. And the Gus and Goldie program, which is a couple of cartoon fish, really kind of, I don't know, it was kind of a fear-based messaging. And as most people know, child drowning is the number one killer of children under 4.
Correct.
It's a big problem. And how do you deal with that? On one hand, you've got all this wonderful stuff that comes along with an aquatic lifestyle. And then on the other, there's this really serious risk factor to some of our most vulnerable people. And I covered the child drowning beat for a long time for Pool and Spa News when I was first there. They give the new guy the crap jobs, And so I did the drowning thing for a couple of years pretty heavily. It's a tough issue when you talk to people that have lost children, and anybody who's a parent, anybody who has a heart, you can't be unaffected by that. So how does the industry go along with that? How do we positively confront that issue without trying to scare people away from the water? And that's a genuine conundrum. What I've always thought, and this is something Vance did not necessarily agree with me on. We did have an ongoing friendly debate about this. And I'm convinced that the answer is to turn towards the water, not away from it, to make it safer. And what I mean by that is child swimming instruction, safety instruction, specifically. Step Into Swim and Swim USA and all these other organizations that advocate swimming maintain statistics about the safety factor of swimming. And you see this repeatedly. And again, there's data to back it up that kids that have had swimming lessons are 87, that's the number I read most recently, 87% less likely to have a drowning incident or severe injury or even death. 87%. Now, that doesn't mean that a kid that's had swimming lessons is drown-proof. No. Champion swimmers and surfers drown sometimes. There's always a risk. Water is inherently risky. But 87% is a game-changing number. And the example I used earlier was that car seats are mandated by law. All children under a certain age and weight have to ride in a car seat. Well, the safety factor there is in the 50% range. You're half as likely to be seriously injured in a car seat than if you're not. 50%. And that's mandated by law. Nobody mandates the 87% swimming. It's strictly,
Volunteer.
and I think when you look at a number like that, I think you can make an argument. Yeah, it's a crime not to teach kids to swim or anybody to swim. That's the hedge against disaster, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the other side of it is what it opens up to you, like all the different activities in life that can come as a result of knowing how to swim. You can think of them: surfing, actual ocean swimming, scuba diving, skin diving, whatever, going rafting. You want to know how to swim. I mean, it's all encompassing, staying away from the negative and moving towards the positive aspect of it. And I'll share this. And I've mentioned this too before. My son, Brett, is a lifetime swimmer. He was a water polo player, competitive swimmer, a lifeguard for a long time at water parks. And he spent years training very, very small children, 1.5 and younger, how to float and how to swim. And that was very controversial. But he was convinced that was, he saw what it could do. Because not only do kids know what to do if they're in the water, how to lay on their back and float. By going through that training, little kids instinctively know that water is risky. And so they're going to be more cautious around water because they've had that experience by and large. And so he is to this day, powerful, outspoken advocate for it. And there are people that will tell you that early childhood swimming training is not a good idea because kids' bodies aren't ready for it, that it makes them too complacent around water. It's a big debate.
So you have grandchildren.
Yeah, I have grandchildren. Brett taught my granddaughter, Rory, to swim, and she was a proficient swimmer by age 2.
How old is she now?
She's 4.
Okay.
And she, not only is she safe in the water and can swim the length of the pool, the unbridled joy that this kid experiences. If there's a pool around, she's in it. I mean, insisting on it. She has developed a passion for this activity that is off the charts. It's like self-defining. And it's at the point now she helps other little kids in the water. And she's 4. She'll get out of the water after swimming the length of the pool and just go, yes. It's amazing. And it's all because she was taught as a little kid to do it. And that's going to be with her for her entire life. You talk about blue mind. I mean, she's like permanently. I would come down on the yes, it's a crime side because of everything we were just talking about.
Well, I understand that some people economically can't teach their children how to swim. They don't have the resources to do such.
They might not be able to swim themselves.
Well, and my mom didn't know how to swim, but she taught me and my brother how to swim. So
Really, she didn't know how to swim, but was able to teach you guys how to swim?
How'd she do that?
She took us into the ocean and threw us in and said, get back to the shore.
Sink or swim, baby.
But the water was deep enough that she could stand there and help us. And she taught us how to move our arms and kick and all those type of things. But she psychologically couldn't do it herself, even though she knew the mechanics of what to do. But she didn't want us to have a fear of the water. She grew up in Kansas. Okay. There wasn't a lot of swimming pools. There wasn't a lot of ponds or lakes or anything to swim in Kansas. And so she didn't have a lot of experience with water. Well, we were born on the Jersey Shore. Okay. We lived a mile from Seaside Heights. So, I mean, we grew up you know, in the ocean all the time. And what was bizarre is almost 60% of the people in our neighborhood had swimming pools. And we weren't it wasn't like we were in a affluent neighborhood or anything like this. Is just common folks that they all had pools too. But literally, we just had a lot of water experiences. So I think that the crime is if you don't know how to swim, to live in life in fear of the water. Okay. Because you can go learn how to swim as an adult. Okay.
Mhm.
And then you break the chain. Okay. Because then you can pass it on to the next generation that you have. What sad is when it goes generation after generation and, you know, grandparents didn't know how to swim. The parents didn't know how to swim. The kids don't know how to swim. Nobody learns how to swim because everybody's afraid of the water. So I think that's what the crime is just that continues, you know, the breaking of the chain and, you know, creating an atmosphere where people can then not fear it. That's one thing, but then the other extreme is you get, like I said, you get the joy of the interaction of water. So you go from one extreme to the other by just learning how.
It's a crying shame when people don't have that experience and don't have the opportunity. You know, growing up, I grew up in Southern California where there are pools, backyard pools and community pools in the ocean. You know, there were summers I was probably spent more time wet than I was dry.
Right.
You know? I mean, it was all the time and everybody knew how to swim and it was just part of it. And I did take swimming lessons at like age 6. But at that point, I already kind of knew how to swim, but they taught you how to swim better and understood, you know, like CPR and got basic safety information about swimming. And so you become more aware. And, you know, I mean, in a place like this, it's kind of defines society, you know, Beach Boys, you know? But it should be for everyone, everywhere. And, yeah, adults, if just because you didn't have it as a kid doesn't mean you can't have it now. And think about the benefits of aquatic exercise and swimming for aging people.
Oh,
You know, if you have knee replacement or hip replacement surgery, or if you have arthritis, you know.
I'm not laughing at people with arthritis. I was just laughing at something I thought of. I'll share in a minute.
Sure. Whatever it is, there's a very good chance that swimming will help because you can do it without, you know, the buoyancy. You're not putting all this weight. I mean, it's proven that swimming, water exercise, you're less likely to hurt yourself than on dry land. You know, you think about running. I used to be a runner, but my knees can't handle it anymore. It's too much pounding, you know, the joints are worn out, you know, but in water, no problem. You know, you can get a much more vigorous exercise with, you know, I just had to stop running because it was just like recovering from it was painful. Swimming it's not like that, you know? And so it can have a lot for people that are getting of a certain age. You know, there's also been studies about the resistance to swimming. You know, personal modesty is part of it. A lot of people don't like to be in a public place in a bathing suit. You know, there's people that would rather do it in a private environment. And the fear of water, you know, there are people that can't handle the idea of being in water that's over their head. You know, that's a very common thing. So now you have all shallow pools and lap pools. And so people can be comfortable and private and still have those benefits.
Oh, yeah. So I've had 2 hip replaced.
Yeah, right. You have. So did you use water exercise to recover?
So it was funny because I went in, I built a pool for a guy that did all the therapy for gymnastics, competitive gymnasts. Okay. Physical therapy. And so when I had my hip problem, I thought it was a knee problem. I went to him and I said, "Hey, can you take a look at this? Let me know what you think." And he looked at it and he's like, "Your knee's okay. Not bad, but your hip's totally garbage." And I was like, "Oh, okay." It's a family thing. Trey's due to get it. 'Cause my great-great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father all had hip problems. My dad had 2 hip replacements. My great-great-grandfather laid in bed 6 years because he had bad hips till he died. He couldn't get out of bed. So anyway, my doctor was like, I'm like, he's like, "You need to lose a little bit of weight before the surgery. It'll help the process." And I was like, "Well, it just hurts too bad to run anymore." And he's like,
How do you work out when you're all laid up like that?
He's like, "Are you an idiot?" And I was like, "Well, sometimes, what are you speaking of?"
What do you mean? How am I an idiot?
And he's like, "You design swimming pools. Do you not have a pool?" And I said, "Well, actually, a lot of pool designers don't have pools, but yes, I do have a pool." And he said, "Then go swim in your pool. Go run in your pool." Well, I said, I don't like swimming for exercise. And he's like, "Well, go run in the pool." He said, "There's no impact there." Okay. So, you can go run in the pool. It's a great workout, and so I lost a little bit of weight before my surgery, and, the health benefits are fabulous and the other thing is there's a lot of studies on the longevity, how much longer swimmers live than everybody else, because of the physical, exercise. It exercises so much of the body. It's really good for people, but there's not the impacts that you have, associated with other exercise.
Yeah, exactly. You can't, you'd almost have to try to hurt yourself in water. Like if you hit your head on the wall swimming, basically.
Yeah.
And I guess there's some ways you can swim with, you can get like rotator cuff type problems. But I mean, compared to like land-based exercise, shin splints and knee problems and back problems and, just the impact of it. Swimming is beautiful. My dad had knee replacement surgery and got in the water and he's like, "Whoa, all this stuff you've been telling me all these years is true." Yeah, it is. And not only that, you're in a good mood when you're done. You're helping your body, you're helping your mind, you're probably easier to get along with. Work doesn't bother you as much, right?
Good place to be.
It's a good place to be. And I'll tell you, I'll leave you with this. I know we're getting down to probably but this is an important idea. And it's something I like to tell people in the industry. The reason I love the water shape industry, the pool and spa industry, whatever you want to call it. The reason I love it so much is because this is what it does for people. All roads lead to happy. This is an industry that's designed to make people feel good, to be healthy, to be together, to take pride in their property, to improve the quality of their lives. It's all about happiness. And, that's a good job to have. I know it's hard contracting. You've been going through it. Everybody, sometimes when I listen to how difficult it is to build pools, it's like, it makes me think I got to do more with my life. I mean, it's not easy what you guys do. Going into people's homes and dropping a bomb basically, and then making it into something beautiful over a period of months or longer at great expense and difficulty. And dealing with inspectors and contractors and problems. I mean, it is a difficult undertaking, all construction. But you're building the canvas of all these wonderful, where all these wonderful life experiences happen. And you're making people happy.
We make the magic and we make the memories.
That's right. And it's for real. That's not just a platitude. You know, it's a beautiful way to make a living because of what you're doing for people's lives. I really believe that. And the blue mind concept, the experiential aspect of it, that's where it all lives. How does it make people feel?
Feel pretty good. Feel pretty good.
Pretty darn good. Yeah. See, Trey, see what you're doing, man? You got this whole life ahead of you, you know, this career going to make people happy all over the place.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited.
Yeah. And maybe make some good coin while you're at it, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Being affluent by having a positive impact on others is a great thing. Let's just say that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And people that buy pools that are looking, if you have consumers watching this, be aware you're doing this to make yourself happy. And you should lean into that. Lean into the joy of it, you know? Make it your own, personalize it. Use it the way that how this all manifests is different for every person. So it's individualistic too, you know? And so from a consumer standpoint, you're investing in your own happiness.
Yeah, from the beginning, you said it was an emotional purchase, and it 100% is.
It is an emotional purpose, and it always will be. So I don't know, Mike, how do you wrap this up? What do you have a kumbaya moment here? Or
I greatly appreciate you coming on and talking with us today. And I
think we could just go on for another hour if we felt like it.
Oh, I know we could. The two of us have had some very, very, very long, interesting conversations over there.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, look, I love doing this. I'm thrilled that you guys are doing this. I think it's really important to carry this message to the public about all of this stuff and what it all leads to, which is happiness and the blue mind. So I'd love to come back again if I can be of use.
Certainly. Well,
thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I love to talk about this stuff. It's fun.
Yeah. Well, we have a great job, as you said earlier, and we get to create some great stuff. And thank you for all the fun that we've had. And
we've had a lot of fun over the years, my friend, and we're going to keep doing it. We're going to keep stirring that pot.
Oh, yes, sir. So
yes, indeed.
Well, you have a good evening, and thanks again.
All right.
Take care.
See you soon.
Yep.
It was great to have Eric on, and me and Eric can sit and talk for hours, and we have talked for hours over the years. We're very similar in age. We both have kids that are similar in age. We have grandkids now that are similar in age, so we've experienced a lot of life over the years in the last 25 years together. But he always brings up some really cool things to think about, and we wanted to talk about how the industry has changed a lot and some of the people that have contributed to it. It was interesting. I've known and knew Vance Gillette, but going back and looking at some of the things that were written about him or some of the articles that he did, it's amazing. When I was talking to him in 1999, what he was describing is what we're building today. And he didn't call it an outdoor living. He called it outdoor entertainment industry.
Yeah.
And how we could have a place that was beautiful, a place we could entertain, and a place that you could have, the prestige of what you've accomplished and were able to do in your own private home. It was really cool to look at that.
Yeah, I really appreciate the mindset. Obviously, I didn't know these individuals, but Jay and Vance both had on the pool industry as a whole. The way you could take, not selling a cleaner, but selling a clean pool. You could put that in perspective. What we do, we're not selling a really nice pool or selling a nice backyard. It just. But also, I really enjoyed talking about the therapeutic side and just overall, physical side of what pools and waters, hot tubs. We even talked about the deprivation sensor or the sensor deprivation tank. But those aspects, being around water, because water means so much to me. So that was a lot of fun. What else?
It's a happy place.
It is a happy place. Being around water is just being. You don't see many people that aren't happy when they're in water. It's kind of rare.
Yeah. So anyway, hopefully people will enjoy the episode and go find a pool and be happy.
Oh yeah. So I hope you enjoy the first episode of season 2.
Yeah.
So episode 53.
In the books now.
Oh,
Y'all
yeah.
take care.
Have a good one. Bye.